I want to talk about redefining entrepreneurship this morning, and a lot of the speakers before me, all of the speakers before me have done a great job of setting this up for me, so thank you for all the speakers that have been here. You know, you don't need me to really explain to you the rapid, accelerated complexity that's coming our way. I highly recommend you, if you know me, you also know I can't get through a talk without a book recommendation. So read Klaus Schwab's book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's upon us. The level of complexity, the rate of change is unprecedented in human history. Robotics, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things. There is a tsunami of complexity and change headed this way. So the question I want to ask you this morning is, are we prepared? Are we prepared for this unprecedented complexity that's coming our way? The term I've been thinking about lately is this term called maladaptive. And the term basically means it's a tendency to cling to what was once a success strategy and ignore the changes in the environment and clinging to a strategy that becomes less and less and less effective. It's called maladaptive. What we're seeing around the world is business leaders, academic thought leaders, policymakers have begun to connect the dots and recognize that the only way forward is entrepreneurial education. And one particular statement I'd like to point to is from the World Economic Forum, entrepreneurship education is essential for developing the human capital necessary for the society of the future. And they go on to say that it's not enough to add entrepreneurship on the perimeter, that it needs to be at the core of the way education operates. It's not a difficult concept to understand. The timeliness is quite obvious to most. The question becomes how, right? How do we move from the perimeter to the core of the way education operates? And that's what I want to talk about this morning. I want to talk about the 5 E's of entrepreneurship education. Count them, there are 5. This is about bringing entrepreneurship from the perimeter to the core. I want to start with, let's expand the definition. For all we understand, for all we hear about and talk about entrepreneurship, the concept is still not well understood. It's very narrowly defined and widely misunderstood. We need to move beyond the Silicon Valley model. We need to get past Shark Tank and reality television, right? We need to get past the plan and pitch business plan competition, thinking about entrepreneurship. We need to recognize that entrepreneurship is not management. We need to recognize that entrepreneurial attitudes, behaviors, and skills are distinct from managerial. So we need to define the term entrepreneurship in a way that everyone can embrace and that everyone can access, whether they want to work within an existing organization or they're going to start something new. So let's move on to the second E. We need to explore the mindset. We need to look beneath the visible artifacts and the espoused values, and we need to look at the deeply held, largely unconscious, taken for granted beliefs and assumptions that drive entrepreneurial behavior. It's there that we begin to recognize that non-entrepreneurial behavior is learned. It's there that we begin to recognize that now, while not everyone wants to start a business per se, that all humans are driven by this innate desire for autonomy and mastery and purpose. And we need to recognize those innate, largely unconscious assumptions as the key to unlocking human potential. Let's go to the third E. We need to engage our students. We did a big rollout of Ice House at Pikes Peak Community College. There's 22,000 students there. And I sat down with President Lance Bolton, and he said, students come here with a dream. They show up on our doorstep with a dream. And we're not doing a good job of connecting the learning experience to their dreams, to make it student-centric. We're not connecting the learning to their why. Right? As Nietzsche said, he who has a why can endure almost any how. We need to embrace entrepreneurial learning. What is that, right? What is entrepreneurial learning? We need to recognize that not everyone wants to start a business, right? Because if we're going to connect entrepreneurship with starting a business, we're stuck on the perimeter because not everyone wants to start a business. Right? When you look at entrepreneurs in the wild, what they're doing is experiential problem-based learning. It's self-directed learning, and it's peer-to-peer learning. These are models that are well known. They're based on constructivism, not behaviorism. Right? We need to teach young people how to separate signal from noise, how to identify and solve problems in resource-constrained circumstances when the rules are not clear, when no one is in charge and no one is coming to the rescue. As part of entrepreneurial learning, in an age when all of human knowledge is in your pocket, we have to rethink about what it means to be a teacher and move to facilitated learning models to teach people to be self-directed. Right? We need to move away. The entrepreneurial process is one of discovery. We need to be facilitators of discovery, not deliverers of content. It's all on YouTube, anyways. So in the past, we've created entrepreneurs by accident rather than by design. If you look at Richard Branson or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, what do they all have in common? They all dropped out of school. Right? We've been creating entrepreneurs by accident rather than by design. Rarely do you hear an entrepreneur attribute their success to what they learn in school. So what happens if we start creating entrepreneurs by design? I believe, as many of my speakers this morning have already said, that community colleges are ideally poised to become the center of entrepreneurial activity, the hub, the coffee shops of the Enlightenment, right? The Parisian salons where ideas are swapped and mingled, and people are talking about hope and the future. Community colleges are ideally poised. So that's going to lead me to the fifth and final E. If we are, as the World Economic Forum suggests, to shift entrepreneurship from the perimeter to the core, we must look within. We must examine ourselves. We must look at this carrot and stick way of teaching and learning that was designed for the last century. We have to look at the extent to which our systems of education and our organizational structures go to discourage or inhibit the development of entrepreneurial attitudes and behaviors and skills, right? It's not just in some of us, it's in all of us. So, I'm going to just wrap this up with a simple idea. The world is changing rapidly. And if you have an employee mindset, it is fraught with peril. Right? The Ice House program has afforded me to travel all over the world. It's been implemented. We've trained thousands of educators on 5 continents. And I'm here to tell you that the world is brimming with opportunities. It's brimming with opportunities. Yet, as Rodney so clearly points out, so many still languish. They languish not because they lack the intellectual capacity. They languish not because they don't have access to resource and power and privilege. They languish because they've never been taught to think like an entrepreneur. Thank you.